What is up, guys? Welcome to the Bar Down 2017 expansion draft featuring the Vegas Golden Knights, run by Rick. Rick was actually very diligent about getting us his list. He actually turned it in to us about 2 days ago. Yesterday, I spent pretty much all day setting up the presentation that you guys are about to see and setting up all the players that were chosen and everything like that. Rick was very attentive to, I guess, every aspect really of the expansion draft, always asking me and Kyle questions and was really on top of things. So it's nice to see he's really committed, and it kind of paid off considering the team that he's assembled. It's actually pretty good. He also has the fifth pick and the added bonus 32nd pick, the last pick in the first round that we gave him, as well as the 35th pick. So with those three picks right there, Rick already has a solid youth coming in. Without further ado, though, let's see the players that are coming in. So what we did here was we have the teams on the left and we have the selections. There's going to be 5 teams on each slide. So without further ado, Rick selects with his, I guess, very first pick, considering it's in alphabetical order, from the Anaheim Ducks, Alexei Marchenko. Marchenko is a good defenseman. He's got some potential. I think he has, a ceiling of maybe a number 4 defenseman, maybe 3 if he surprises me that much, but definitely a solid pickup. He's a young defenseman, room to grow, at least the third pairing type guy. Let's move on to Arizona. Rick selects Calle Yarncroc. Yarncroc, don't really know how to say his name. I feel like I'm saying it right one time, saying it wrong the next. But ironically, I think Yarncroc might actually get selected by Vegas in real life as well. I know Nashville also has, I think it's James Neal exposed. So that'll be interesting in real life to see if Yarncroc gets picked there as well. He's a very good forward. I think he's a second line center. Potentially, I mean, not even potentially. I think he can play on a second line given the people around him. He fit in very well once Johansson went down for Nashville in real life in the playoffs. So great pickup. 2 young guys right away. Always nice to see that. And from the Boston Bruins, Rick selects Nikita Triamkin, keeping the young trend going, except Triamkin went to the KHL. Rick assured us this is who we wanted, so don't bash on him. This is who he wants, and I don't really blame him if Triamkin comes back. You don't really teach 6'7" guys, especially on defense, to play the way that he does. This guy is really good. He has all the potential in the world to be a high-quality defenseman. He actually had a good year for the Canucks, even though they didn't play so well. I think he was a bright spot, so I think him going to the KHL is a bit of a surprise, not only to me, but to maybe the Canucks themselves. So kind of interesting he went back there, considering a lot of people in the KHL are coming over to the NHL within the past 2 years. So it is what it is. From the Buffalo Sabres, Rick selects Sam Gagner. Now, he had a pretty good year. I feel like every other year Sam Gagner has a good year, so who knows, maybe this season he's going to have another down year. So this might be your time to trade him, Rick, while his value is high. And to finish the first 5 picks, Rick selects from the Calgary Flames, Semyon Varlamov. Varlamov had a bit of a struggling year with injuries. I think some things outside of hockey as well, but when he's on his game, he's one of the best in the league, I guess you could say. I think he's a top 15 goalie when healthy, and his mind's on hockey and everything, and he's playing consistently. I think Varlamov will get a starting job somewhere. If not, he'll definitely take one from somebody else during the year. So Varlamov is a great pick. As long as he stays healthy, I don't see a reason why he's not a starting goalie. Now for the next 5 picks, Rick selects from the Carolina Hurricanes, Ryan Dzingel, another good young forward. Don't know if too many people know about him if you don't really follow the Senators. Probably don't hear too much about him, but he was a great forward, probably one of Ottawa's better forwards actually, the whole year and in the playoffs. So great pickup. You got Jan Kruk, you got Dzingel, and can't think of the other guy, even though it's on the top of my head, but definitely a good core to start with. And from the Chicago Blackhawks, Luke Schenn. Um, I'm not really a big Luke Schenn fan, but when the players that are exposed are so minimal, you have to pick the best available. And Luke Schenn actually has a decent rating, so it might be a good trade value. Who knows? Maybe Rick wants to keep him, but a solid pickup. From the Colorado Avalanche, Connor Brown, another young forward who has a lot of potential. Um, I know a lot of Maple Leaf fans really like this kid. He can put up points a lot, especially if you see his numbers in juniors and everything. I'm not really sure if he has a future in Toronto, simply only because the sheer depth they have up front with all their youth and everything in Toronto. But if he does stay there, I mean, playing in maybe a top 6 role there, I mean, he's going to get a bunch of points. Even if he gets traded, he'll put up a bunch of points. So great pickup there. From the Blue Jackets, Jake Gardiner, great pickup on defense. Top 4 defenseman already, pretty young as well. So Jake Gardiner, you get what you get. I don't really think there's room for him to become that much better of a defenseman, but he's not going to be worse than a top 4 defenseman as well. So great pickup as well, starting off to a great start. And Brandon Manning from the Dallas Stars. Another defensive defenseman, I guess. Not really too high on him, but this is another case, same scenario with the Blackhawks, where you have all these young teams in our league, and this is basically the bare minimum requirements. I myself did this, so I understand what Rick did here, and he's just picking what has the most trade value, really, and can't really fault him here. Manning will have a decent trade value. Maybe we'll get him, a second round pick or something. So great picks so far. Now, this is where the picks start to get interesting. I actually think that these 5 teams, or at least 3 or 4 of these 5 teams right here, are some pretty big choices. So, from the Detroit Red Wings, you got Franz Nielsen. Very solid pickup. Guy's a second line center. He's good defensively. He's pretty much good in all aspects of hockey. He's not really, going to get you a bunch of points, but he does put up a good amount of them, and he's not too old, not too young. Definitely a good piece to build around or trade away. And I think this might be the biggest, if not the second biggest name. Well, actually, I don't know. This is, I guess let's just show the pick. Joe Thornton from the Edmonton Oilers. Very solid pickup, Jumbo Joe. Maybe he lost a little bit of a step compared to last year, but he still had a great year. I think Thornton's got a few more years left in him. I don't know if he can keep up this quality, or maybe he'll even get a little bit better like Yager's been doing. But yeah, Thornton, very solid pick. First line center, and really you can't go wrong there. Now you start to wonder, is Rick leaning towards competing or not after these past few picks? So, interesting. And from the Florida Panthers, Roberto Luongo. Great goalie, ironically from the Florida Panthers in real life as well. Luongo has been one of the best goalies in the league the past few seasons. Starting to look like the old Luongo, actually, from the Canucks. And yes, I guess, when you have that situation where you're Florida in bar down and you have to make that tough choice of exposing Luongo, he probably knew he was going to lose him, but hey, he won a cup, so Luongo gets his cup and he gets to be the face of Vegas. Now from LA, Rick selects Alexander Edler, another veteran another good player. Don't really know the direction at all here right now. Not saying that's a bad thing. This is actually really interesting. He has all this trade value so far. If he wants to trade them, who knows? Maybe he'll trade the younger guys and compete. Maybe he'll win a cup. How awesome would that be to be the expansion team and win the cup in the same year? That would just be probably the best thing in any sim league that you could imagine. And from the Minnesota Wild, Christopher Tanev. So, I think these 5 picks right here are all phenomenal. Really can't knock any of them. The only thing you can look at maybe if I was Vegas, I would have gone a younger route. But you have to keep in mind all the players exposed aren't under the age of 22. So you get what you get, and you have to go with who you want based off trade value if you want. Now, for the last half of the draft, Rick selects from Montreal Johnny Oduya, another veteran defenseman. This might just be, he has a bunch of defensemen already. This is probably just hey, I'm going to get this guy. I'm either going to keep him or I'm going to trade him. And probably another case yet again of a really poor exposed list to choose from Montreal. Now, Kyle exposed a bunch of good players. Kyle is the Nashville Predators, as you all know. And Kyle was getting fucked either way. So, Rick decided to select Erik Johnson. Erik Johnson, I love Erik Johnson actually. He's one of the best defensemen when healthy in the league, defensively especially. He does everything for the Avalanche, really. And if you dig into the advanced stats, this guy is phenomenal. Kind of really goes under the radar. Obviously everyone knows who Erik Johnson is, but you don't really know how great of a player he is, considering the Avalanche are never really in the playoffs or, really talked about too much outside of Matt Duchene and Nathan MacKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog and where they're going to get traded to outside of MacKinnon. So, without further ado, Rick selects from my team. Now, I didn't really have anybody too good of exposing, but if I was to be in Vegas' shoes, I would have picked the same exact player that I exposed, which was Zack Kassian. Kassian's still a young forward, still has a little bit of a potential to maybe eventually get into a second line role. He played really well for Edmonton this past season. I think the fact that he didn't have any pressure on him, any expectations really let him play his game. So Kassian's a solid pickup as well. And from the Islanders, Rick selects an Islander, Casey Cizikas, another good young forward. I think he's one of the better forwards that Rick's picked so far. He played pretty well for the Islanders this past year, and I think he's actually being protected by them. So it shows you how much the Islanders like Cizikas and value him. And I'm sure Rick does the same. Now, from the New York Rangers, Rick selects Mattias Ekholm, another great defenseman. Rick's been going pretty heavy on the defenseman, and I think that's a result of people valuing their forwards more than their defensemen. I know I do that as well, where if it's not a superstar like Hedman or Carlson, I'm going to keep my forward over the defenseman only because I have to put 12 forwards on the ice versus only 6 defensemen. But that echelon of defense is really hard to come by. So, Ekholm, I think, is outside of the very top tier. I think he's a very good defenseman that was shown in the playoffs, especially in the finals. And, Ekholm's a very solid pickup. This team's looking pretty good. Now for the last third of the draft, Rick selects from Ottawa, Michael Frolik, another good older forward. He gets the job done, has a solid rating. Be a good compliment if Rick does compete. You always need guys like Frolik. Or, good trade value. People are always looking for a guy like that to put on their second or third line. And Rick selects from Philly, Brandon Peary. I like this pick a lot. I think Peary, he had a 30-goal year. I don't know if it was, I think it was 2 years ago, and had a little bit of a setback last year, but I think Peary gets it back up. I think Peary is a great player, definitely a top two line forward. So great pick up there, and he's young. From Penguins, Lee Stempniak. This guy fell off the face of the earth, I want to say maybe 2 years ago. He was on a tryout at the beginning of the year for the Devils, and he just turned it up. He broke the 50-point margin. I think he had 40 or 45 this year, and he's really solid defensively. So Lee Stempniak really raising his game in the later parts of his career, and he's definitely a good guy to pick up. People need him as well. He actually, I won a cup with Lee Stempniak in OGSHL, so he gets the job done for sure. And from the San Jose Sharks, Rick selects from Rick, who is also the San Jose Shark owner, Leo Komarov. Another good pickup. Komarov's a solid forward. Don't know what the plans are with him, but he's definitely a good pickup here for Vegas to build around. Now, I think this might be the most interesting pick out of the entire expansion draft. A couple of you might not even know who this guy is. So, without further ado, Ken Appleby. Now, this is a solid goalie. I think he's a bit of a, I guess you don't, he's I guess in a goalie sense he's still a prospect considering how late goalies blossom and end up actually playing in the NHL. But yeah, I think Appleby can be a really good goalie. I don't see a problem with this at all. I think it's another situation of what was given to choose from. But yeah, solid pickup. I think it might surprise people, or it might just be a waste of a pick. We'll find out in a few years. Now for the last 5 picks. I think this is where it also gets a little bit interesting as well in these last 5 picks. Rick selects from Tampa Bay, Craig Anderson. So you have Anderson and Luongo. That's a great goalie tandem, and that means somebody needs a starting goalie if they're going to compete. So right away you have one or both to trade away, or you have Anderson, you have Luongo to build around and keep one. You already have a solid roster already, lots of leadership and everything like that. So who knows? Let's take a look at the last 4 picks from Toronto. Brian Dumoulin. I love this pick as well. Very solid young defenseman. At times he was Pittsburgh's best in the playoffs. I think he's more of the Penguins' third or fourth best defenseman, right behind Letang and Mata. But I guess you can put Dumoulin over Mata, but Mata's potential is a little bit higher. But yeah, Dumoulin's a man, the man, I guess you could say. He's a Stanley Cup champion. So I like this pick a lot. Definitely very heavy on defense. I think he has a lot of pieces to move there on defense, and that can definitely shore up his offense. Given not too many great forwards were exposed, you take the solid defensemen and you start flipping them for forwards. So I think I see what Rick's trying to do here, and I like it a lot. And for the last 3 picks from the Canucks, Jordan Martinook, solid forward. I think he's pretty young as well, so I think he fits this team well on a third or fourth line, at the least on the fourth line. I think he's more of a third liner. He actually has a scoring touch, so it's always nice to have a scoring threat in your third line. From the Capitals, Johan Larsson, another young, solid guy. Another, I guess you could say, third liner, similar to Martinook. I like the fact he can play center. So another solid pickup. Maybe he becomes a second liner somewhere else. Who knows where Larsson ends up, but it's a solid pickup nonetheless. And for the very last pick from the Winnipeg Jets, Rick selects. I think this is actually a good pick as well. It's interesting. It is Jacob Markstrom. So very heavy on goalies now as well. Um, Maybe Markstrom's the guy he wants to build around. He's very young still. I wouldn't say very young, but he's still relatively young. I think he's about 26 now, or maybe 25, 26 or 27. I think it's 26 or 27. I probably should have looked this up before I started this video, but it is what it is. At one point, Markstrom was supposed to be the best goalie, I believe. Him and Jack Campbell, if we go way back. Jack Campbell actually found himself in the ECHL, I think, 2 years ago. And last year he was in the AHL. I think they actually got an NHL game in there for the Kings before they got Budai and Bishop and all them. But yeah, it's funny how Markstrom's been slowly getting better, and maybe one day he'll reach that potential. I don't think he'll reach it as high as people had it for him, but he's a very good goalie. I think he's finally getting the hang of it at the NHL level and setting himself up to succeed. So the Vegas team set up extremely well. Like I said, very good defense. I think this defense is already top 10 in the league, which is pretty funny. I actually expected this Vegas team to be pretty well um, set up. I think it's better than some of the teams already existing here, but that's what's going to happen in real life as well. Um, the real life Vegas team has a bunch of good players to select from. You got guys exposed like James Neal, Fleury. There's just a bunch of people to select from. The only problem with that in real life is having to balance the salary cap. And if you even want to spend that much, if you're Vegas, I mean, you don't know how well you're going to perform, I guess, financially right away. So it's a bit of a risk if you have a big payroll and you're not really doing well financially. So it'll definitely be interesting in real life to see. Obviously, here there's no cap at all, so it's you're gonna. I think you'll have a little bit better of a team here, maybe compared to what it will be in real life. But I think in real life you have more of an opportunity to get these extra draft picks and everything. Teams are scrambling to trade and meet their exposure requirements and not lose guys for free. And they're always trying to set up trades. You're like hearing like, don't take this guy, and we'll give you X and a second and third round pick. So very interesting. I like what it's causing in the NHL. It kind of seems like this past 2 years have just been nonstop year round. Usually it's dead, and you're just sitting there watching baseball. There's no football or anything. And it's just, what the hell do I do? So it's very cool. I definitely want to be an expansion team in the future. We all know that 32nd team's coming. I want to see it in Seattle. I don't know where you guys want to see it, so I think Seattle would be a great place for a hockey team, especially if the crowd gets into it like they do at the Seattle Seahawks games in football. That crowd's nuts, so that'd be awesome for a hockey game. It'd be like another Nashville arena, really. That was awesome if any of you guys saw that. But enough of this rambling. We got some more details for you guys. The entry draft for Bar Down is going to start July 1st, so a weekend after the real life entry draft. And trading is officially open. The only thing is you need to have your relegation drops in order to trade. Now, keep in mind, we all lost a player, so we're all at that same playing field. But if you finished in the top 10, you don't need to expose 13 players. You just need to bring your roster size down to 32. So if you're at 43 players, you only need to drop 10 to get down to the 33. Sorry, 11 to get down to the 32. So as long as you meet those roster requirements, not the drop requirements, that's all we ask of you. Now, one thing to also keep in mind is when you post your relegation drops and you submit a trade, your relegation drops are locked. You cannot trade anybody on your relegation drops list. So keep that in mind when trading, and we've had a few situations like that where they're in a trade but they're on your relegation drops list, so it will not go through at all. So thank you guys for watching. I want to thank Rick again for picking great team and being so focused on it and asking the right questions and being on top of things. It's really nice to see that he's committed and here for the long haul. So thank you guys for watching and good luck at the draft.